given more away to couples than any other book is this,
A
Wired.
Wired for Love, yeah.
It's just it's so easy to read, and there's such great practical things for couples and therapists to do with couples. And if we could get really practical for a moment, I'd love to
Yes.
to get you to just explain a few things for us here. The couple bubble. These are three things that I want to get you to talk about: the couple bubble,
Sure.
submarines and aeroplanes,
Yes.
launchings and landings. So the first one, this whole aspect of keeping each other safe. And you've got
Yes.
this great analogy, couple bubble, or sometimes you cut the couple castle, the same
Right.
analogy though. So tell us, what is a couple bubble?
Well, the couple bubble is basically an idea that you and I are stewards of a safety and security system that protects us from each other and everybody else. And this is just a dyadic idea that as primary attachment figures, we have a very unusual kind of relationship, possibly one of the most challenging that we ever have, both in childhood and in adulthood. And it operates by certain rules, and these rules seem to be universal. One is the primacy of this relationship doesn't really do well with thirds or others sharing resources or intruding on the primacy of the relationship in such a way that sidelines one of us. Now, this is even true, it turns out, in polygamous and polyamorous cultures or communities. There's always a primary person. We know this by how huts are arranged in Africa, and when in certain areas of the United States where it's outlawed, and the government breaks these polygamous communities up. There's always a primary that the male picks from the group of women. So there is that primary. If you think of a couple as a biological survival unit, that their job is at the fundamental, at the bottom of it, is to keep each other safe and secure, because without the trust, there really isn't very much that will carry them in the long run. So the couple bubble is a way that you and I have each other's backs, like cop car partners or in the foxhole together. We have to know each other well. I call it being experts on each other. We have to protect each other in public and private. And we have to operate according to principles of fairness, justice, and mutual sensitivity. We're collaborative and we're cooperative. That's how we roll. And this is based on social justice theory. The couple, being the smallest unit of a society, has to operate by rules and principles of justice, or they will accrue too much unfairness and injustice, and that will lead to threat. And that's basically the idea of how couples can actually, two different people with two different brains, two different nervous systems, can actually get along and thrive in the long run by having this couple bubble.
And I find that if you explain the principles, the couples will nod and yeah, we get that, of course. But there's something wonderful about the metaphor of being in the bubble or in the castle or whatever it is, with these as a distinct boundary around about the couple. And I will, actually, sort of draw in the air, there's this boundary that encapsulates you two as this couplehood.
Yes.
And suddenly it just adds a whole new dimension. They get it at a much deeper level.
Right.
And so much more personal. Yeah. So
but it's also so fundamental. And I've been watching videos, these fantastic videos on looking at couples and bad psychotherapy. And it's the television program Married at First Sight. I don't know if they've seen it over there, but they get these people together who are desperate to marry, and they marry them, and then they go off and see what happens. They call it an experiment. It's fascinating, but terrible. But one of the big things that comes up all the time of when there's difficulty and when there's not difficulty is exactly this couple bubble. Someone says, I had a bad night because we were at the dinner and you didn't have my back. Equally, the other side, where someone said, when it got a bit difficult there, I so love the way you just stood for me and stood with me. And of course, these are people who've known each other for 3-4 days.
Right.
It's a really fundamental need by the looks of things when I look at this sort of aspect. It's a fundamental way in which we do things to, and we can talk about vagal tone and all those
right.
sort of areas. But it does something to our sense of well-being.
Yes, I think of it as radical loyalty, radical devotion. That when we do that, whenever we devote ourselves to something, whether it's a career or a child or a partner, romantic partner, we're automatically disciplining ourselves, focusing ourselves, building character, because that which we devote ourselves to becomes extremely complex. People don't realize that, but once we really decide and go all in on something, and whatever we do, the aperture opens and a universe opens before us that isn't there when we don't go all in, when we don't do this. And so this fealty that people build together day to day by proving it, with mistakes, but proving it, brings about a different kind of love that cannot be there in the beginning. It's an earned love and respect that partners have for each other. And I really want people to have this experience. It is, unless you've seen it or had it, you don't know it exists. And we have so many people, because of their histories, that are allergic to this idea. They're afraid they'll be codependent, they'll be overly dependent, they'll lose themselves, they'll a fear of missing out, all these things. And what is lost, again, is the choicefulness of something like this. And again, the discipline and the focus that takes place when we do such a thing. We really do grow up when we are dedicated to something and someone.
Well, if you want to know more about the science of psychotherapy, come across to our website, thescienceofpsychotherapy.com, and our podcast of the same name, and learn more about the science of you.